Welcome back to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We're brought to you by Yak Gadget. For all your fine quality kayak fishing needs, go to yakgadget.com. Pelican cases, coolers, and lighting. Go to pelican.com. And the 153 Bait Company. For all your hard, soft plastic bait needs, go to the 153anglers.com. Now let's talk about some awesome products. It's Brian Schiller, everybody. What's up, Brian? Yay!
What up?
Welcome back to the final cast, my man. What's up?
Not much, man.
Yeah. How was your tree stand soiree this evening?
It was pretty uneventful. Saw some squirrels.
No.
Some birds.
The
That was about
200-pound
it.
squirrels? What I call them.
Yeah.
When you're in the dead of the woods and you don't hear anything, and those squirrels sound like they weigh 200 pounds when they come through the woods.
Yeah. It's interesting. I shot a doe last Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when this airs, it'll be 2 Fridays ago.
You killed Bambi's mom?
Yeah, I did. But it was interesting because I saw her coming out off this creek, and all of a sudden there were like 2 squirrels like fighting, and I saw the same 2 squirrels in the same spot tonight, like running back and forth, cackling, and I thought for sure they'd scare her away, and she made a beeline right for my tree, so it was pretty interesting.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, man.
So you got some meat coming? You got some processing going on?
Yeah, I use a local processor here that does a really good job and make sure you get your meat back and not, like the big thing with processors is some of them will take all your trimmings, weigh how much it is, and then they'll mix it in with like 20 other people's trimmings and then grind it all up, where this guy does each deer individually. So you're getting your meat back, which is super nice, especially like if you have a guy that brings a deer in and maybe like it's rotten or it got gut shot or, whatever. Like, I mean, I've gut shot a couple deer and like never really tainted the meat as long as you clean it out really well and, take the precautions, but not everybody does that.
Right.
So, he does a great job. I was actually talking to the wife. We might try some new stuff that he's offering this year, which is cool. Like in the past, I've gotten summer sausages made, and I would hand them out as like Christmas gifts. I would go up to Wisconsin, get blocks of cheese, have the venison summer sausage, and then kind of give that as Christmas gifts. Well, I never really kept any for myself.
Yeah.
So I might do that because she likes summer sausage and bratwurst. He makes bratwurst too, and a couple other things. So
Tube meat, bro.
Yeah, you know me, dude. You know me. He does hot dogs too, so I could send you some so you can make some chili dogs. I know you've been on that kick, but I'm gonna experiment this year because so I punched 1 tag and I got 6 more. So, I don't think I'll fill all of them, but if I do, like usually I try to get at least 3 deer a year for the family. And I'll give a little bit of meat away and stuff to like my folks and like close friends, my brother, like things like that. But usually if I get over that threshold, then I'll reach out to some of my friends and just be like, hey, what do you want cut wise? Do you want, snack sticks, things like that? And they'll order it up and, they just pay for it. And, that's a great thing about hunting is just being able to share the fruits of nature. You know what I mean? Right. So
I'm going to expect some, I told you already, jalapeno cheddar summer sausage. So we have a process.
The snack sticks. Yeah.
No, this is summer sausage, the big one.
Like, he does those too. He does those too.
So good.
Yeah. Well, he does the snack sticks as well. And I would get them all the time before. And last year I didn't, just because like I had taken a break. Like the last time I bought deer tags was 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And then last year Jay wanted to get into hunting. And like I'm running him through all this stuff, and like I'm like, dude, what am I doing? Like I should just go hunt with you. Like he does have some private land, like that fish and hunt club he belongs to.
Yeah.
So he could do that, but I've been hunting all public land, and I really enjoy it. Like there's been a stigma around public land for many years, I think, and now I love it, man. I love it just because there's so much of it. Um, a lot in Wisconsin, which I've learned, and then there's some really good chunks of land out on the western part of Illinois that me and Jay put a lot of time into last fall. So, Jay kind of re-sparked that passion, last year when, he was drilling me with questions and stuff. And I love teaching people that stuff, man. Just like fishing,
Yeah.
But I don't know, hunting special, it's basically 3.5 months out of the year, whereas like you can fish all year round. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a special thing.
Heck yeah, man. I'm glad to see you back out there. And that's a
Yeah.
good intro because we brought Brian onto the final cast to talk about hunting out of the kayak because I know
Yeah.
you got to do some, and I know Brad Holdas is into it. And so I wanted to kind of get you on to talk about what you did this year to set up the kayak or what your future plans are.
Yeah.
I don't know how long is waterfowl season last for you guys?
So waterfowl season in Wisconsin, well, I think it's all of the states. And this is interesting because we just did a podcast on the OG show with Punisher Waterfowl. And those guys are in Canada, and their season is like 4 months long, I think they were saying 3 or 4. And in the States, it's 60 days. So like this week,
really?
So you do get an early goose season, and duck. Everybody knows what a Canadian goose is. So you get, I think it's like 7 days is that early goose, and then I think it was 7 days for early teal, and then like I do a lot of duck hunting in Wisconsin. I don't do it in Illinois because the way that they offer it on public lands, like it's a lottery system, and you got to draw a permit for a certain day and blah blah blah. Pain in the butt. Whereas Wisconsin, you go to the marsh, you show up, and you go out and hunt.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who's there, whatever. And there's a lot of them, but they split the state in half because ducks are migratory birds. So like northern Wisconsin opener was like that last weekend in September, and then southern Wisconsin opener was the first weekend in October. And then we had like a full week, and then it just closed Monday through Friday, and it opens back up Saturday. And that's too a lot for the 60-day season. So it's kind of goofy the way like they do it, but there's a reason why.
Yeah.
Which obviously gives you more weekend days rather than weekdays. But I went up with Brad for the northern opener. We shot some wood ducks and some mallards, and then the southern opener didn't go that great for like opening morning. And then I drove around, did a bunch of scouting, and we found a little wood duck hole on a creek and shot a couple there too. So yeah, it's cool. And ducks, there's many different species of them, and they migrate down in waves out of Canada. So like right now, wood ducks like warmer temperatures. So we're seeing a lot of those. You are seeing some mallards around, but you'll get into gadwalls and things like that as the season progresses. But as far as a kayak goes, I mean, where do you want to start there?
But tell me what you're hunting out of, and let everybody know what you decided to hunt out of this year. And we kind of touched on this a little bit when I had you on, talking about your new canoe. So we obviously know you got a new canoe.
Yeah.
But what boat did you pick, and are you camoed up? What are you doing so far?
Yeah. So last year, I duck hunted out of the new canoe Pursuit. This year, definitely in the unlimited. New canoe's been doing a pretty decent sized push for kayak hunting in general, whether it be waterfowl, deer, hogs down south, things like that. Like, like I mentioned earlier, I'm hunting a lot of public land. So accessing public land by water versus the road, normally you got, certain entrances, only certain ways to get in to access that public land. Well, if you can come in the backside and say there's other guys hunting, well, now they're pushing deer back towards you. Or sometimes it's just a stealth approach.
Mm-hmm.
You can be super sneaky coming in off the water versus, the main access, so to speak. Right. But New Canoe actually partnered up with Mossy Oak this year. So New Canoe's always offered a duck blind, and it was just a general camo pattern. But the new Mossy Oak is in shadow blade grass. Mm-hmm. I believe that's the proper terminology. So I'll pull up a picture here. So that's the duck blind bear out of the box. So, the biggest thing when you're duck hunting is trying to conceal yourself, in the marsh, whatever, marsh grass, on the bank of the river, whatever it may be. So that way you're kind of hidden. And, there's guys that, have duck boats and John boats and things like that they duck hunt out of. Well, those things are a lot harder to hide in that marsh grass compared to a canoe.
Right.
A canoe or kayak or whatever. And I believe I was talking about this on another podcast, John Rapp's podcast, the Rusty Hook kayak fishing podcast. Mm-hmm. I think it's Yak Gear makes a duck blind, and I believe it's specifically for feel freeze, but I have a feeling like you can use it on other kayaks as well. But there are a couple manufacturers that are out there that do make duck blinds for, just like a one size fits all for kayaks and stuff, which are great. Don't get me wrong. You can use like a burlap, camouflage burlap, to cover yourself up, things like that. So I'll pull up another picture, but, I personally, Brad Hurlboss turned me on to this synthetic grass. I know it sounds goofy, but, it's almost like a, plastic, but it looks like real grass. And, I use that to, kind of do a base layer, on my, blind. Here it is here for those listening on the podcast. Sorry, guys. But, you kind of zip tie that stuff to those little loops and stuff that were on the blind in that first picture. And it kind of helps conceal you in. However, see if I got, this one here. It's still sharing this, right?
Yeah.
So you can see that was one side got done and the other side's done now. But one key thing you want to carry with you that I learned from Brad was a machete. So when you're going into these marshes and you're trying to tuck your kayak in, you want to use some of the natural habitat around you too. So you carry a machete with you and, chop up some of the natural forage around you and kind of lay that over the top of your blind, or, stick it into that, fake grass that you already have. And it just helps hide you better.
Mm-hmm.
Ducks have the brain of size of a pea, but they can see all kinds of stuff, man. And if you stick out, they are not coming in. They'll flare and go the other direction and things like that. So, yeah. So that's the kayak setup. I'm using the New Canoe Unlimited with the new Mossy Oak blind, and I actually have another one. New Canoe's doing a limited edition with the Mossy Oak partnership. One is Shadow Blade Grass, which I know Brad has on order. I think his is supposed to be ready next week, and I have the Bottomlands edition, which is a camo pattern by Mossy Oak. So they kind of try to do the plastic blends to replicate the camo patterns, which is kind of cool. So I got the not the Shadow Grass, the Badlands pattern, and that's supposed to be ready next week as well. So I'll have two unlimiteds. One I'd want to keep kind of set up for fishing, and that's the one I kind of have dressed up in those photos. But the limited edition will be like the strictly hunting kayak, or buddy kayak to go out fishing, things like that. But it'll be nice to have both. So I have duck blinds for each one. So like Jay right now, right? I just got off the phone with him. He's moving to Tennessee this weekend. He's going down there to drop a bunch of stuff off at his new house. And some of those things are his kayaks. So he's like, man, I'm not going to be able to duck hunt. And I was like, well, if I get that other boat early enough, I'll have a spare boat, dude. Come on, duck hunting. So again, it's that, teaching people how to hunt, man. I love doing that because, I didn't get into hunting till like my late 20s. And I had a mentor that took me under his wing, a good friend of mine, Scott Purrs, taught me a lot about walleye fishing and just fishing in general, ice fishing. And, he was deer hunting some property that my parents were living on. And, he had asked me about it. And I'm like, I'm sure my folks wouldn't mind, he's just bow hunting, And then I was like, man, I've always like had an interest for that, like shot bows and stuff as a kid, and like Boy Scouts and shit like that. But he took me under his wing. I bought a cheap used bow off of Craigslist, shot it a bunch, told me what to, look for, aim for, how to track a deer after you shot it, things like that. Like my first deer I shot, like, this is a great story and a great learning experience. Like, it was my first ever sit in a tree stand, and I had 4 does come in behind me. And at the time I was in like a 2-man ladder stand that I had bought, and I had shot the one, and Scott's like, he heard him crash to the woods because he was on the other side of the woods about, I don't know, 150 yards away or something. And he came over to my tree after it got dark, and he's like, what'd you shoot? I was like, a doe. And he's like, where'd you shoot it? And I'm like, I don't know, center of the body. Like, and I ended up gut shotting that deer. And, a big saying in hunting is when in doubt, back out. And we started to track it, and the blood was just not looking like it was, through the vitals. So, we backed out. I didn't sleep all night because I was worried that I just like botched this deer on my first sit and all this stuff. Next morning we go back and we found it 30 yards from where we had left off. And, she had passed away over the evening. Found it, no coyotes got to it, which was great. But, it was one of those things like you got to pay attention to where that arrow smacks your deer, things like that. Like I just experienced that this past Friday when I shot that doe. Like it was getting to the end of shooting light. I had shot the deer, but as soon as I hit her, she took off running and she was quartering away from me. So basically that means she was facing away from me, slightly angled.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I hit her. I just wasn't sure where. But the way that she was angled away, that arrow, you kind of aim for the center of the body because it's going to go forward into the body cavity and, hit lungs, heart, things like that. So Jay was actually coming out to my house this past weekend to go out deer hunting. And I came back home, picked him up. We went back up there. We had tracked blood, and then like kind of lost it. And mind you, we're in the middle of like the forest at like 10 o'clock at night. Super hard to track it. Like the blood trail wasn't super great because I had hit her up high.
Mm-hmm.
So like in the arrow had lodged in her. Like we had found the arrow that night and it was good blood. Definitely hit lungs because there was bubbles in the blood, things like that. So when you do that, like the chest cavity's got to fill up full of blood before it starts pouring out. So it's kind of hard to track a deer, that way because there isn't a ton of blood coming out till that fills up. So, I was like, you know what, dude, like we just need to back out of here. We'll go back to my house. We'll go hunt in the morning. We'll come back. We'll hunt for maybe like an hour and a half because it was going to be cool overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll come back here and it's sure as I'll get out. Like we're walking in the woods. Jay's like, blood right here. We found that deer in 10 minutes, and we probably walked past it 3 times that night. Not knowing it, but that's the thing, like when in doubt, back out. Sorry, I know I went down like a rabbit hole with that, but getting back to the kayak hunting, like it's just super unique. Like if you've never waterfowl hunted, like waterfowl is something I've always wanted to do. And Brad Hurlboss, again, like I think the biggest thing you could probably take away from this episode is if you want to get out there and hunt, get out there and hunt. Like find somebody that can be a great mentor to you and teach you the right things, and you'll have the time of your life. And then you'll start going out there doing it yourself and all those good things. Well, waterfowl, like never knew anybody that waterfowl hunted. I've been friends with Brad, and he had invited me up last summer. He was like, yeah, dude, you should come up duck hunting. I was like, hell yeah, I've always wanted to do that. Like, heard it's a great time, and that's the thing too, like duck hunting versus deer hunting is completely different. Like duck hunting, you could hunt with your buddies, you can talk. We always make the Letterkenny reference. We could smoke some darts, and just have a good old time. It's really fun, and it's a style of hunting you could do with friends and conversate and hang out while you're waiting for these birds to come in. Whereas deer hunting is kind of solitude. Like, I've gone out in the field with Jay to like first couple of times, like hunting public land, show him what he's looking for, things like that. There's a whole strategy that I have on hunting public land. So, you could do a little bit of that, but, deer are very weary from scent and sound. So, like, if you're talking like we're talking, a deer ain't coming anywhere near you,
Right.
You're whispering most of the time, just being super quiet. So, I mean, I really like deer hunting because it's solitude, man. You can kind of grab your thoughts, be by yourself, out in the woods, and it's, very peaceful. Whereas duck hunting, man, is just a blast, like Brad brings his dog along with too. Sometimes she'll retrieve the birds, and we're just sitting there, BSing the whole time while we're waiting for birds to come in. But, that's the unique thing. But on the flip side of that, because you're hunting out of a kayak, you can also go out solo. All of our kayaks, super stable, whether you're in a new canoe, a Jackson, a Bonafide, a Feel Free, whatever, like they have very stable models. And a lot of these duck blinds have little trap doors built in for dogs. So, if you got a retriever, your dog could be in the back of the boat, hop out, go retrieve your birds and come back. Or if you don't, it's so easy to uncover yourself out of the marsh, paddle out, get your birds. Or if it's super shallow, hop out of your kayak, walk out, grab your birds, jump back in the kayak. Whereas, like going back to what I was talking about before with like a duck boat or a john boat or something like that, now you're having to uncover that big boat, get out to the birds, and get back and covered up in a timely fashion before the next flock comes in, which could be a pain in the butt. Like I've experienced that with Brad. He's got a duck boat, and we ran into an instance where he winged a bird and we had buried his boat back up in the marsh and we were hunting off land, and the bird like was upside down in the water and then all of a sudden like flopped up and started swimming away. So we ended up losing that bird, and that's like the most horrible feeling, like whether or not it was a lethal shot or if it was just an injury shot and she'll recuperate, like you don't know. But as a hunter, like I know we get frowned upon because like people think we're killers and things like that, but that's the last thing we want to do, but it does happen. Like
You are the killer, Schiller.
Yeah, I know, but
it
does happen. It does happen. Now, if we were in kayaks, might not have happened because we would have been able to get that thing out and could float it in the 6 inches of water that Brad was struggling in to get his duck boat out of to get to that bird before it got away. So, there's definitely pros and cons. You know what I mean? Like now you're paddling across a marsh. Brad uses a mud motor on his new canoe, and that thing can rip through 3 inches of water and mud and grass and whatever. I know you guys just recently did an episode with Newport vessels. I got one of those coming. So I've been talking with Romel, who works for Newport, and he's saying a lot of guys are having no issues going through lily pads and stuff like that. So he's like, dude, you should have no problem ripping through marsh grass.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see, like looking forward to testing that out. But for waterfowl, that's, a couple things you should definitely have is like a leash for your gun. That way, if it falls out of your kayak, like you can retrieve it and you're not going swimming in the end of November, beginning of December, looking for your shotgun at the bottom of a marsh. Good pair of insulated waders when it's in those later months and the air temps and the water temps are super cold, like dry suit under those waders.
You know what, dude? I think you have a new business adventure. Camo dry suits.
Dry suits, yeah. We should talk to NRS about that.
Yeah.
Get her a cut, get them hooked up with mossy oak.
Because a lot of times when they're making those, they're like high vis. They got reflective, and
sure,
it's not really a bad idea because that would be much safer.
Typically, like you're gonna still have waders on, right? Because those, they got the built-in boots and things like that. I do use wading boots and stocking foot neoprene waders for the colder months. And then you're going to have a hunting jacket on over the top of that too. So, it still gets covered up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be nice. Like an insulated dry suit, camouflaged.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
It'd be like $1,500 dry suit. And then you start putting the patterns on it and insulating it, dude. Like, it'd be so expensive. like, $700-800 for like a decent, you could get some of the decent ones a little bit cheaper, but you're looking around that price point.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can imagine you start slapping name brands like Mossy Oak on it, Gore-Tex and
Sure.
Thinsulate.
Oh man. Well, and that's the thing too, right? Like you can get into it like totally cheap, like I mentioned earlier. Get some camouflage burlap,
Yeah.
which is dirt cheap. You can get
Some
it at like
spray cans,
Cabela's
Krylon
Bass
green.
Pro. If you got a bright colored boat, just make sure it overlaps your boat. So you're, like if you got like a green boat, it's like a lime green boat. It's not sticking out, or like a red line bona fide. Like you want to, cover that up. But and like I said, bring a machete, chop down some of the natural forage around you, and lay that over your kayak. Lay that over you. I mean, you're going to be wearing camouflage and stuff. You can go get a half dozen to a dozen decoys.
Are you painting your face?
With I haven't yet. I usually use wear a face mask, but I've thought about the war paint just to be silly, but you can do that for sure. But you can get half dozen to a dozen decoys with weights and everything for $100 or less. And then obviously like shotgun, you can use whatever. Like that's the thing. Like me and Brad have been talking because I'm like, dude, like I use a Remington 870 pump shotgun.
Yeah.
And Brad's like, dude,
Old
you
tried
cycle
and
that.
true.
Yeah. He's like, dude, you cycle that thing like a beast. And I'm like, that's the thing, man. Like I've been thinking like, man, I should get a semi-auto like shotgun for duck hunting, But at the same time, like I can get 3 shots off in not the same time frame as him, but almost, I've shot at birds that I've missed the first and second shot and got them on the third, like, so what's the point?
Yeah.
It's like you said, that Remington 870 I use for waterfowl. I use it for pheasants. I've used it for woodcock, dove. Like it's a great all-around shotgun, and I bought that thing years ago for like $250 used or something, 300 maybe. So just get a nice used shotgun. If you don't want to spend the money on a new one, you don't need the fanciest shotgun out there. Read your local regs, like hunting regulations, and get the proper licenses and stuff like that. Like I had a conversation ago with Matt Gibson, and he's like, dude, I've shot just as many ducks over a half dozen decoys not calling sitting in my kayak as I have hunting out of a duck boat with like 8 dozen decoys out. Like,
Yeah.
You just gotta, do your scouting. Like that's the biggest thing with anything hunting, right? Like I talked about this on, I think it was Mindset podcast with Chris, because he was talking to me about like the transition from fishing to hunting and like how my mind works and blah, 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 blah. So hunting and fishing are real similar. Fishing, we go out pre-fishing, we're scouting new water, looking for fish, things like that. It's the same thing in hunting. Like I said, that opening morning for Southern Opener, we hunted the Wisconsin River, saw a few birds flying, but nothing in range. Talked to a couple guys at the boat ramp, and they're like, man, this has been like the worst opener for us ever. So on my way home, I stopped at a bunch of public land spots that I had marked on my OnX app and scouted them out. And I found this little wood duck hole that ducks were flying in and out of. Went there that night, and Brad ended up coming down and meeting me. And I shot 2 birds, and Brad missed 4 birds. But yeah, it was what it was. Brad was having a bad day. Let's just say that. But I tried to give him as many opportunities as I could. And then finally I was just like, no, it's my turn. But it was what it was. But That's the biggest thing. You got to do your homework. It's the same thing with deer hunting. Like, I've been scouting probably 12 to 15 different pieces of public land right now in Wisconsin. And this weekend, I'm focusing on the public land in Illinois because Jay and I and the Godfather are deer hunting during the rut out there. And, you got to put in your homework if you want to be successful and you want to harvest animals. Like, that's what you got to do. And I know Brad does the same thing all year long. He's watching waterfowl holes, seeing what's going in, what's going out. He's a big upland bird hunter as well. So he's going out checking those areas. Like this year, because we've had such a drought, like some of the woodcock areas that we hunt are like super dried out. So they might not hold woodcock. So, we've been looking and talking about some other spots for that. But, that's the thing. It's the same as pre-fishing. You just got to do your homework. I look at maps like every freaking day, like, and analyze them. Like, where do I think the deer's going to move? Where do I think they're coming from? Same thing with waterfowl. Like, I like hunting those small little creeks and, marsh pockets and stuff like that. Well, what big lakes are around? Are there farm fields around that they could go feed in and then like stop at this spot before they go to their big water roost spot? Like things like that. There's a lot that goes into it. And, you got to think like the animal and put in your homework, do your research, and start to try pattern and, these birds or deer. Obviously today's technology, you got trail cameras. So I just bought my first trail camera in a long time. I don't even know if I have my old one. But nowadays they have cellular connections on them.
Yeah.
And, when a picture is taken, it gets sent right to your phone. So, that could be super helpful. Like the trail camera I just picked up, it's by Spy Point. $100 cellular connection, you get 500 free photos a month, I think it is. And if you want to up that, it's like you can get unlimited photos for like $15 a month, I think it is. So if you're in a high concentrated area or you have other wildlife going by, like coyotes, raccoons,
Trash
skunks,
pandas.
rabbits, dude, epic trash panda story for you, dude. Did Monday night after work, I was in the woods on the edge of a cornfield, and it had just stopped raining. There was this big puddle. Saw a little baby raccoon come out and take a bath in the puddle before he proceeded to walk into the cornfield. It's the coolest thing to watch. And that's the thing too, right? Like some people out there think that hunting's all about just killing things, right? Like that's a tiny little fraction of the puzzle. Like going back to what I was talking about earlier, like sitting in a tree stand, just enjoying nature, like watching the woods come alive in the morning and go to sleep at night. And, those night creatures come out like a raccoon. Like so cool to watch that little thing come out, dude. It was cute as a button. I know it's your like long distance cousin, but like came out and just like, jumped in the puddle a little bit, was playing around, came out, shook off like a dog, and then just kind of strolled away into the cornfield to get
going on a date.
He was, dude. Yeah, he was
fresh
getting all
and so
freshed
clean.
up. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing, dude. Like, especially in fall, like you start to see some birds that you don't normally see, like in the woods, like cardinals, blue jays. You can ask Jay. I'm cursed by the woodpecker. No matter where I sit in any block of woods, whether it be Wisconsin, Illinois, wherever, there's always a woodpecker like 2 or 3 trees away, just knocking away. And like, dude, it just frustrates the hell out of me. But that's the thing, man. Like just getting outdoors and enjoying it. It's the same thing with us kayak fishing, like just being out on the water. Catching the fish is the bonus, right? Like being out on the water, just being out in nature, dude. Like, and I know like some people are going to be like, oh, Schiller's a tree hugger, but Dude, it's not necessarily that. Like, if you've never experienced it, you have to experience it at least once in your life. Whether you go and shoot an animal or not. Like, I will, like, bet anybody, like, go sit in the woods one night in an area that holds wildlife and just sit up against a tree wearing some camouflage and just watch what happens, dude. It's kind of gnarly. It's cool. Or get out there at dark and watch it as the sun comes up. Like, it'll be super quiet, and all of a sudden you see the world come to life, and it's a unique experience, man.
Yeah.
But other than like waterfowl hunting, like, I do use the kayak for deer hunting as well. So, like, this spot I'm currently focused on, like, you can come in off the creek and there's actually kayak launches. A lot of people wreck paddle this creek. And there's public hunting land on both sides of it. So I may come in the backside to access that stuff to get into bow hunt. During rifle season in Wisconsin, I'm going to access some land that nobody really goes to, where deer should get pushed to, because everybody comes in off foot. Nobody goes in off the water. So I can go launch the kayak early in the morning, motor over or paddle over to the spot I'm talking about. And there's entrances on both sides of this from land, and it should theoretically push the deer right to me. So, I'm gonna utilize that this year as well. I know Brad utilizes his kayak to get to some upland bird spots. When he chases grouse up north, like, he'll use a canoe if he's with a buddy, or a kayak if he's solo, and he'll get back into some thick stuff that holds birds that you can't get to from land access. It's only water access. So, you can utilize that stuff. I know New Canoe has some track mount gun holders and bow holders. So if you're in another kayak, it's just a track mount system. That's a great accessory to have. I got it on my kayak, and I got a spare set to go on the new kayak as well. You put your shotgun right in this rest, and there's a strap that goes over it, so it secures it in. And it's the same thing for a bow. Your bow just drops right into it. You strap it in. If you really want to, like, check out some really cool stuff for kayak access deer hunting, check out Parker McDonald. He's got a YouTube channel called Southern Ground Hunting. He does that a ton down in Tennessee, and I think it's Alabama or Georgia. He utilizes his kayak for all types of hunting. I think he's already got 3 deer down. I think he just posted another one today that he shot out of his kayak, getting to some public land. Think outside of the box. Like, that's the biggest thing, is, like, a lot of guys are starting to do that. There's a big YouTube channel called The Hunting Public. I know those guys have been using kayaks and canoes for a couple years now, and, like, people are catching on to that. Like, hey, deer hunting is a lot of work, and doing it from a canoe or a kayak, like, to get back into these access points, is a lot of work as well. But if you want to shoot big deer, good deer, you're not seeing deer from the road access, but there's a way to access through water, do it. And I guarantee you, like, your success rate is going to change for sure.
Well, I mean, you even see that when you go on, like, river trips. Like,
sure.
Like, it's
how many of us
going down, and you're looking over, and there's just a deer, and it's looking at you, and you're looking at it, and it's like, what's happening? And then I'm like, what's happening?
Well, that's the thing too, right? Like, deer got to drink. Like, they need water too. So, like, water sources, especially, like, early season, like, I know Wisconsin, their bow season opens September 15th, Illinois October 1st, and I've been talking to Jimmy Skinner down in Alabama, and I guess they open October 15th. So he's getting back into bow hunting this year, and so he's been drilling me with some questions, and we got a group chat between me, Jay, and Brad. Like, hunting chat, and he's been asking a ton of questions, sending screenshots of some public land he's looking to hunt, and asking us what we think are some good areas to go sit in there. And he's kind of giving us the lay of the land, which is cool. Like today, again, with technology, Google Earth Maps, Onyx is a great hunting app. I know there's a new one, Spartan Forge. There's a couple other ones, but they use satellite images. They'll show you public land, private property, borders, things like that. So you're, within, property rights, things like that. And, early season, them deer got a drink, man, when it's super hot, which it has been.
Yeah.
Tonight's probably been one of the coolest nights. That's why I went out tonight before we did this, is because it rained and then the temperature dropped, which will typically get deer up on their feet. Obviously not where I was sitting, but, like that's the thing. Like, I encourage people to try it, man. And if you're already a hunter and you have a kayak and you've never utilized it for accessing some hunting spots, maybe when you're deer hunting you got a goofy wind where you'll blow deer out, but if you come in through the water and come in the backside or whatever side it may be, and it won't bump those deer, it's just going to increase your success rate. So it's just another tool in the shed. Yeah, I saw that when we were talking about Ohio public lands. The temp.
There's some spots that I've always kind of been interested in hunting in my area that I learned from fishing.
Sure.
Before I even got into kayak fishing, I was walking everywhere, and there was some wildlife areas that that I knew were open to the public for hunting wise and stuff. And I've seen some good deer out there. I just always been. It's like you said. There's always that kind of stigma around public access. It's like duck and run.
Get
out.
Like,
but I don't know. I think though the thing is that more people are trying to trophy hunt, so they're going to take every advantage they can to get on the public or private land.
Yeah.
Yep. It's like maybe we can kind of you start checking out the public spots and you realize they're not as busy as what you thought. I don't know. I'm not a hunter,
and that's just it, right? Like when I'm hunting public, like if I roll up to a spot and there's somebody already back in there, I go to the next one, like or the next parking lot or the next area, and like I'll make it work. Like, or like I've had it too where we show up in the morning and there's like three other trucks in the parking lot. You're like, hey man, where are you going? I don't want to sit on top of you. I don't want to, I don't want to blow your spot up. I'm sure you don't want to blow mine up. Like, communicate with those guys or gals, whatever they may be. And, like I've never had a bad experience. Like, hunters are like fishermen, man. Like we're all buddies. You know what I mean? It's like everybody's cool with each other. Just communicate. I have had it like in the past. Like,
did you say anglers are cool with each other?
Most of the time. It depends. But I had a bad experience back in the day on public. Like, hiked back into this spot with my climbing tree stand, and like I'm up in this tree, dude, and this guy comes and like sits like 20 yards from me. And like you can't like stand up and go, hey dude, I'm right here when you're deer hunting. So like I threw out a couple buck grunts at him, so like he knew where I was at, and like he just proceeded to sit there. He looked right at me, and I'm like, really, dude? Like, this is lame. Like, are you freaking kidding me? And at that time, like, I had private land access where my folks used to live, and I had permission on the neighbor's property as well. So, like, we had a good block of timber to hunt. But, I've just learned, like, if you ever have that situation, just move. Just get up and move. Like, don't sit there unless it's, like, the last, like, 30 minutes. Like, I had that this last year. I was sitting in a spot, and all of a sudden, some dude, like, just comes crashing through the woods. like didn't even shoot a deer. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? It's like the golden time of the night, and you're like cracking branches and like rummaging through the woods. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Like, and I was like, whatever, I'm getting down now. Like, this guy just blew this spot out, you know? It is what it is. It sucks, yeah, but you know, at the end of the day, it is public land. It's everybody's land, just like the water. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's, you know, just because you have a spot you like to fish on the lake doesn't mean another guy can't fish it.
Right.
But if you know, make conversations with that other angler, hey man, like, I'm here, I'm in a tournament, you know, like I'm fishing for some money, you mind backing off a little bit? As soon as I'm out of here, it's all yours. And 9 times out of 10, that other person is going to be like, yeah, no problem, dude, and roll out. So, you know, that's the big thing is like, you know, try to get off the beaten path. Sometimes like spots get super overlooked that are close to the parking lot too. Like my big buck I shot last year, actually 2 deer I shot last year, were in the exact same spot 50 yards, 60 yards from the parking lot, because on this particular piece, everybody thinks that they have to go way back in, and everybody looked over this whole spot that was all rubbed up by bucks. It was during the rut, and shot 2 deer right there. And it was a nice short drag to the truck, and it was great. But
Oh yeah.
you know, be cognizant of that, man. You know, rifle season in Wisconsin, that's the Wild West. That's when you got to be careful. Like, seriously, I did that for the first time last year, and like I thought I was going to die. But I made it through, and I'll probably do it again this year. But, you know, you just conscious of what's going on around you, and just, you know, watch out, and, you know,
Wear orange.
wear orange, be safe, be seen by other hunters. Like, don't like hide, you know, away. You know, it is what it is. Like with a rifle, you can reach out and touch somebody, but with a bow, you know, like typically you're having those deer, want those deer 30 yards or shorter, depending on what you feel comfortable shooting at. And, you know, a little different. Same thing in the marsh, man. Like, you know, we'll show up. There's other guys in the parking lot. Hey, which way you guys heading? Like, we don't want to set up over the top of you know, because then like you're trying to call ducks and this guy's calling ducks, and it's confusing to the ducks. It doesn't work, you know. So, you know, just communicate when you're hunting that public land. And I'm telling you, man, like there's great deer shot on both public and private land every single year. Me personally, like I'm a meat hunter. Like I'll shoot a doe. You know, I posted that one I shot the other day, and Dwayne Wally from Turney X commented on the photo. He's like, I thought I was the only one that shot does. And I'm like, no way, dude. Doe meat is so tender and delicious. Like, I'm filling my freezer, bro. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I feed my family with this stuff. But, you know, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm all about shooting big bucks too. You know, I will avoid shooting a small, like, little 6-pointer or spike or something like that. You know, I like to see those deer get bigger. You know, I usually try to shoot a 3-year-old or older, you know, nice 8 to 10 point, you know, bucks. But, you know, it's to each their own. Like I told Jay, like he hasn't shot a buck yet. And I'm like, dude, shoot the first buck that walks in front of you, whether it's a fork 6-pointer or a giant 10-pointer. Like, who cares, dude? Like, the trophy is in the eye of the beholder. You know what I mean? Like, I've experienced it. Like, I've let a lot of small deer walk, like on the old private land and even on public land, you know, and I've shot some really big deer. And if you're new to hunting, I recommend you shoot as many deer as possible before a big buck walks in front of you, because it's called buck fever, man. Your adrenaline starts pumping, like your brain doesn't function 100%. Like, it's a very unique experience, and you could really botch that up if you don't have the experience of shooting deer. Like, I mean, your heart is beating in your throat, and like a lot of people call it target panic, and they'll freak out and they'll butcher a shot and injure a deer.
Yeah.
So get practice in, and that's one thing too. Like as far as bow hunting goes, shoot your bow as much as possible. Always practice your craft. Same thing with rifle. Every year you should go shoot your gun, make sure you're sighted in, you're good to go. Shotgun, like Jay and I go shoot trap and skeet occasionally, to make sure, we're swinging on birds right. That's a good way to practice for upland hunting, duck hunting, all that good stuff. So just practice using, whatever weapon you choose to use, um, and just hone that craft, and you owe it to the animal, to put it down in a very fast, humane way. So,
Dude, appreciate all the information. Do you have one of your calls with you? You want to sign us out with a
no.
call? Oh, really?
I don't. You should have told me, dude. I would have brought a duck call up here or
The
my
other
buck
day,
run.
I think you were sitting on the toilet doing duck calls. So
No, I was driving in my truck.
No,
I was
just
driving in my
kidding.
truck. I always practice my duck calls because I'm not that great at duck calling. I just started toying around with it end of last season. So, like when I'm driving around, I'll practice quacking.
All right.
You could
Well,
do the old the doe bleat.
Just turn around. The turnaround.
Yeah, the grunt is. Yeah.
Oh, dude, I appreciate you coming on and talking with us about this, man.
Yeah, man.
Anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just, like I said, man, anybody that's interested in it, get out there, do it, find a mentor. Like, feel free to reach out to me with any questions. I know Brad Hurlboss is the same way on Paddle and Fin. We love helping people out, and love getting people involved in the hunting side of things. The more, it's kind of one of those things, like technology got popular, and these old traditions that man has been doing for thousands of years, is starting to fade away. And there's a lot of money that comes in to conservation, both for the woods and the water, through hunters. So
we'll just wait till everybody starts smacking deers with their car,
yeah, right,
car, and they're like, oh yeah,
well,
we might need these guys.
That's a whole wormhole
my
too,
bushes,
man.
My bushes are all gone because the deer came in and ate them all over.
That's a big wormhole too, and there's like a lot of conspiracy theories behind like CWD, which is chronic wasting disease, and things like that. Like, the deer populations were getting big because there wasn't as many people in the woods hunting. So like DNR programs were setting up sharpshooter programs where they would bait deer, which is how CWD is spread through the transfer of saliva between deer. And they were sitting there with, sniper rifles, like picking deer off. And then they were feeding them to like the zoos, or I've heard stories of them just like freaking burying them out in the field, like things like that. It's like, if you want some dude to be sitting in a ground blind drinking bush lattes over a bait pile picking off your deer, don't hunt. But if you want to, be able to feed your family and friends, like, I don't know, man, it's some of the cleanest, purest meat out there. Same thing with elk and, all kinds of stuff, like wherever you are in the country. Like, that's one of the things that really got me into hunting was, my mentor, Scott Purrs. He got heavy into hunting and fishing because his wife got breast cancer, and she's been in remission for years. But when she had it and she was going through chemo treatments and stuff like that, one of the questions they had is like, what should she eat? What should she not eat? Things like that. And the doctor straight up told her, go eat as much wild game as possible, because all your beef, chickens, pork that you get in the grocery store is injected full of hormones, antibiotics, things like that that affect that stuff. You know, wild game is some of the cleanest, purest meat that you can get to this day, because unless you're going straight to a, you know, organic beef farm, which you're paying $8 million a pound for, you know, like, go out and hunt, man. Like I said, I try to harvest 2 to 3 deer a year for my family, and we literally just ran out of ground venison and steaks and stuff this past weekend. And that's because I was trying to make room for the freezer. Still got 6 pounds of some Italian sausage that I had made up last year. But
more to me.
It's in bulk. It's not in cheap form. But you know, that fed my family, and you know, we've had barbecues and stuff like that all year long. I mean, granted, we'll still eat beef and chicken and pork
it's not
and all
as
that
much
stuff. But yeah.
I was going to buy some bison the other day, and I was like, what? How much?
That's one hunt I want to do up in South Dakota. But it's not cheap. It's like 4 G's. But that meat is a lot. It's a lot of meat. So,
and it's expensive.
But
like, it's so pricey.
It's so good though, dude. It's so good. Yeah. All
right, man. Well, thanks again for jumping on the final cast for this week. And if anybody has any questions, always feel free to reach out to Brian or Brad. They're or even Jay, and I'm sure they'll be more happy too.
I don't know about Jay, but I guess you could try that.
I mean, just talk to him. Let's have something. It's just Jay.
Make him feel special. Him feel special.
Our residential field expert, Jay Randall. But nice. Everybody, thanks again for listening, and tune in next week, and we'll talk to you later. See you.
Later.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode on Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle_n_fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle_n_fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in Northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. Shout out to Jigmasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com